Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be continuing our little journey with the Douglas DC-6 by PMDG there, and we're going to go ahead and put it down on the ground up in Providence, Rhode Island. Now unfortunately the weather is absolutely garbage here, so it's going to make for a really fun little ILS approach, and we'll go ahead and do that right now. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, we're currently using the GPS to basically get us down to the ground. I've got everything kind of locked in here. The other thing I've done is if you take a look at my V-lock here, you can switch, by the way, by pushing this button. I've got 109.30, which is going to be our little number that we're going to need to dial in. Think of it as our localizer. That's the word I was looking for there. So down here, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we are pointing to the correct direction. So if you take a look at the actual approach plate for this actual approach, which is actually kind of nice, it will tell you right at the top, we need to point this at 47 degrees. That's the actual magnetic heading we're interested in here. So I'll dial that to 47, so that's where the aircraft is going to be pointing when we come in for our approach. Now the approach of this aircraft is a little tricky, as you're going to discover. Not only do we have to keep all the temperatures and pressures and settings and everything ready to go, you're going to be constantly kind of battling with this thing to make sure everything's kind of approaching appropriately. Obviously you need to make sure you get your flaps set correctly, and the flaps on this thing are like barn doors. Once you deploy them, the aircraft does not want to continue flying, which is not a bad thing. It's just a little different. Again, you'll see exactly what I mean. So we'll wait for us to kind of go around that corner. And then we're going to get ready for the approach itself, which, like I said, not too complicated. You can usually get 100, 110 miles an hour, knots I should say, is pretty much as you need. Alright, we are now on the approach. We're going to go ahead and flip on the localizer. We're going to change CDI modes first. We're going to come down here. We're going to click this over to the approach hold. Keep in mind, you won't get any approach data unless you are already on the localizer. In this case, I'm just confirming to make sure it says correctly. It says V-lock. We are in awesome shape. Looks pretty good looking out the front. Go ahead and look out the nose here. Altitude hold mode is off. Looks good. Looks good. Start getting us a little bit of descent, and now I'm going to ask this guy for my controls.
Flaps 20. Setting flaps 20. 20 flaps set. Masters ridge weight. Auto ridge. Mixtures.
That looks good.
Gear up and down, please. Gear up and down.
Alright, we're quite a bit below glide slope, but we're perfectly lined up left-right. Everything looks good. You can see our glide slope starting to make its way downwards now. Alright, looking pretty good so far. Distance to go to the ground is 11.5 nautical miles. I like to get our power right into the white, and I also like to open up the cowl flaps a little bit here. You don't want to have any accidents on the way down. This is a great time to overheat because you're very high drag, but very low power. Alright, looking pretty good. I'm sitting right at the edge of that. You can see my glide slope's coming up, looking out the window. Nothing to see. Alright, we are currently on glide slope. Couple whacks downwards. And we have basically a manual glide slope approach. Nose down a couple clicks. And we've just about got it right back on course there. Nice. Excellent. And we'll probably come down a millimeter here. Airspeed's getting high. Perfect. We are exactly on glide slope. We are exactly on localizer. Distance to go to the ground is 8.1 nautical miles. I mean, there's something down there. I see there's some buildings and stuff. Good time to take a look at how things are going on this side of stuff. Yeah, it looks good. There we go. Clear to drop our next notch of flaps. Remember, we're in control of the aircraft at this point. RPM looks delightful. He's going to go freeze up the carburetor. Once we get down a little bit closer to about 5 nautical miles, I'll continue with everything else. Whoops, starting to get a little high. Outer marker. Nothing to see yet. Hey, there it is right there. I wouldn't try to fly towards it because there could be trees and nastiness between us, but that just means we're doing okay. Airspeed's looking good. Checking everything. We're getting a little high. Usually you just reduce power when you start getting high. In this case, we're going to do a little bit of a combination of both. Getting a little outside of the white arc here. There is the runway straight ahead. Now that I can see the runway, I remember the runway in the fog is actually closer than it appears. We're going to go ahead and put down our last 2 notches of flaps. All right, the aircraft's going to go, whoa, and start slowing down very, very aggressively. All right, this is more than close enough to take over manual control. So I'm going to go pop my head down here. I'm going to click that switch off, which is going to immediately disengage the automatic pilot. And I'm going to go ahead and shut this one off, too. We don't need that anymore. All right, I am in control of the aircraft. And we immediately begin sinking because I'm not paying attention. There we go. Okay, so approach speed on this thing. I can hover right about 110 or so. Seems to be a pretty good speed. I'm going to smoothly increase the RPM. 2,500 in case we need a lot of go-around power. All right. Getting a little slow. And now we are on our way down. Now this aircraft, like a lot of propeller aircraft, basically you're going to control your up and down with the throttle. You can control your speed with the nose. So if you start to see that you're getting higher, just go ahead and gently back down the throttle a little bit, but don't adjust the nose. If you start seeing that you're getting a little on the fast side, just lift the nose up a teeny tiny bit. So by combining those two forces together, you can get yourself down to the ground pretty smoothly. Right now we are very, very high. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the nose down, just reduce throttle a little bit. And we start gliding down towards the ground. Picking up a little bit of chop by the nearby city of Providence. Everything's down, everything's locked, temperatures are good, airspeed's starting to come up. We're going to push that nose down even more aggressively. Now, one of the killers here is your camera angle in this airplane is absolute garbage. There we are, a little bit lower. And we are looking good. Perfect. I would not trust that glide slope. Alright, we're just going to take ourselves over the ground. This is one of those aircraft that when you cut the throttle, the airplane pretty much stops flying. You're not going to be able to gently, kind of gingerly come down with it. It's just going to kind of get away on you. There is the middle marker. A little bit of crosswind here. Airspeed looks good. Smoothly reduce the power. We're going to do a gentle flare here. We're going to haul it just like a regular airplane. And there's the touchdown. Delightful. Gently let the nose come down, and note that there's a completely different procedure as far as activating the thrust reversers. I'm not going to cover it at this time. Smoothly apply the brakes. Make sure you go ahead and use both feet to maintain directional control. You don't have to go slamming on the brakes. You will lock them up if you do. All right, we are here. That was actually one of the better landings I think I've ever managed with this particular plane. I'm kind of proud of that one. I wish the approach was a little bit smoother. So again, the basics there, about 110 seems to be the magic speed for kind of approaching. Obviously, if you get a little lighter, you could easily hit 100. Keep in mind, when you're working with gusty conditions, coming in a little faster actually makes it a little bit easier. When you do land, you want to go really ginger on the brakes so that you don't lock anything up, or if they don't start fading on you, which could be just as dangerous, really. Give a couple bursts of thrust here, sneak our way off the runway, and now we're pretty much ready to go. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this little series on the DC-6. I think this is an awesome plane. There's a lot of other fun things to play with it. But for now, I think this will be a good place to stop. Enjoy.